We call town manager. Good evening.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your attendance.
I'm walking the dog, so.
Oh,
It is cold.
Wearing my financial hat tonight. And I will have something for you electronically shortly, but this is just quick.
quick. Thank you.
Thing to- Through it.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I will have something for you, Amy, I promise.
Thank you, no problem.
Electronically. I have our accountants going through, and they went through the last few years, and so at the moment where we stand is this, and again, I would preface this by saying, I believe that designated fund balance is going to go up. We just have to clarify a couple of things in the historical record, and I think it'll go up. So, but as of right now, based on the spending that was done at annual town meeting in the spring, and what was just done in the fall, there's $22,208 in the historical preservation account, $64,837 in the community housing account. There's no money in the open space and rec account because it's all been spent. It can always be replenished, but this is all spent. And there's $1,429,067 in the undesignated, which means it's money that could be spent on anything. There's also $496,097 that for revenue that had not been allocated at annual or special. You didn't have any projects this fall, did you? No, you did. You had a couple of small ones, right? Yeah. So, right now, the money that's available, again, I'm fast forwarding, annual town meeting, right? Money available for any projects is $1,925,164. And the same two numbers that are only, the 22,208 can only be spent on historic preservation. 64,837 can only be spent on community housing. But that 1.9 million can be spent on any of the eligible project. We're projecting that you'll have $723,872 of revenue for the FY26 year. The bond payment, this will be bond payment number 2. Bond payment number 1 is this year. It's about $272,000. It's $272,701 this year. That'll be made. Interest was just made, but the first principal payment will come in May. Sorry. Next year's will be $267,000. And it keeps going down. So every year it's steady principal, and then the interest goes down. So over the next 9 years, it'll continue to fall, which will leave a net of $456,872. You then have to spread that out. 10% of your gross revenue has to be allocated to those 3 accounts. So if you put that, and again, I'm just taking 10%, right? You usually allocate 10% for admin. That's Tracy, that's lawyers. You usually don't spend it anywhere near that, but it's there, which will leave $203,000 to spend on anything. So, questions of me? Now remember, you go some bond too, so like you did with the rec projects. So that $2 million is being paid over 10 years.
Yep.
The net, because we got a nice premium payment. It's a 5% note, but we got a premium pay down. So we only ended up borrowing $1.825 million. And we got some premium payment back because they can sell the people who sell the bonds get better market if they have a higher coupon on it. But our net interest cost is less as a result. So again, it starts at 272 in year 10. 2034, it gets down to $189,000. So more and more room will open up over time. But you still have the ability to, again, I didn't do any kind of bonding projections, but you have the ability to bond money easily too, if you so chose. Or pay in cash, or, do some kind of mix if there's a large project that came in front of you.
Yes. Any questions?
And I'll send you something electronically.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Jen?
Yeah, this, all the money that's already been allocated.
So it's all
already been
out.
Paid out, that's all out.
So,
And then the allocations for 26 would be added into whatever's left from,
right. So you'd be starting from this basis plus the
Plus that.
$456,000.
in this breakdown.
Right, that'll, and again, but you have to break that out, so, technically I didn't add these up, but if you. Again, we'll get a more exact number on the projected revenue, but that's the number we're working with right now. You'd have $94,000 that would have to be only historical preservation. You'd have $136,000 that can only be historic, community housing. You'd have another 72,000 can only be open space, which by the way, can be used for the debt payment too. I mean, on the rec project. So, you don't have to spend it that you gotta, it can be used for the debt on that. And then you'd have the $1.9 million that's available for anything plus the other two. So you'd have more than $2 million. Again, not suggesting that you don't have to spend all at once, but you must certainly have money available to spend on projects. So. And
Can I ask Chris a question?
sure.
So right now, we're looking at a pretty serious requirement of replacing a very large amount of roofing that was initially installed in 1982. So you can do the math of how old it is. What could we expect would be a reasonable portion of the total cost from that larger solidified $1.x million? How can that money be used? Because the choice is going to come down to, do we fix the roof now, or do we just, patch the roof?
Housing Authority, Elm Street.
Oh, well, there's an application in there for state funding for that too.
Right.
So something like that, I think we have to get there. I mean, the state really owes and has an obligation to put some money into that project. And I think, I'm also not sure how much we can actually put into that, by law either. I think.
Because they're looking for 276,000.
Yeah, that's a 276,000 is an achievable amount of money.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, remember, you're going to be generating $456,000 of available money next year, in addition to what you have in the bank now. And again, I'm hoping that after I talk to the accountants a little bit more, a designated number will go up.
But we continue to have the 260,000 bond service every year.
Well, yeah, that'll keep falling. I mean, so this year it's 262, then it's 267. And I could share this chart, but it's actually what came from what we bonded, right? So it's, this is locked in. So every year it falls about $9,000 or $10,000.
Right.
So,
But give or take, I mean.
yeah, you'll have that payment for
Yep.
this year and 9 more years.
Yep. And so if you decide you're going to bond something else, that begins to get a significant amount
money, yeah.
of cash flow absorbed in debt service.
You can also make a multi-year grant, money this year and a money in the future, money in future years. That said, as the town's property base goes up, the value goes up, the CPC contributions go up. So we actually had a big jump because of just some new growth, and we have another set of new growth numbers that are coming in. So as the base goes up, the revenue goes up.
Are we expecting the state to continue its
Mhm.
10% at least?
Yeah, in fact, the numbers have been much higher than that.
Yeah.
So we only have in the projections that I gave all of you last fall, but I'll give you an updated version. Or it was fall of 23, because we didn't do any major projects. Right. So we've seen numbers that are well over $100,000 a year. And again, it depends on the registry and it depends on what the state throws into the pot, but the match has been really good. So.
Stuart said last year that the matching may decrease.
Yeah, well, it spiked to over 200 some odd $1,000. So we're getting basically almost 40% match. So is it going to be 40%? No, but we're only budgeting at 10. So, so 10 is 70. We're getting 100, 120, 150 easy. So on this, for these things, I tend to recommend, we tend to look at these very conservatively, and if more money comes in, it's all the better. It's gonna, in the bank and you can spend it. I would not want to project a 40% match and then have it not come in, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so yeah, I wouldn't count on 40% matches, but we don't budget on 40% matches. We budget on 10%
It'd
matches.
also be uneasy bonding another project, like just, well, maybe depending on the project, but just having another bond payment to pay.
It's gonna be, yeah.
Just so over 10 years.
Again, so if you get to a point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, good.
Now, if you get to a point where you have a project of size, I can run scenarios where you could pay some down right away with money and then maybe bond a small amount. And when I say bond, it doesn't mean you have to borrow for 10 or 20 years. You could spread a payment over 3 or 4 years. The interest rate's comparatively low and it just stretches cash flow a little bit. That's all. I mean, at the same time, there's almost $2 million in the bank. So I'm not suggesting you spend it all at once. At the same time, it's there. It's the community's money. And if there's eligible projects, it's certainly there. But again, I'm happy to run debt scenarios too, like we did for the rec. So
Any other questions? Amy, any?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chris.
thank you.
I appre-
My pleasure.
All right, Holly Hill.
Just a little introduction. Can I pull the chair around here?
Absolutely. Identify yourselves and it's all yours to orchestrate.
Very good. Well, my name is Mark DiGiacomo, and I'm the chairman of the Friends of Holly Hill Farm. And I'm going to start out the discussion, and then Carolyn and Meredith will get into it a little more. Yeah. First, thank you for having us here. This project, I'm sure you've all heard whispers about it, and Tom's been down the farm and so forth, really for years. But here we are. We're actually doing it. And we're all very excited about it. As you know, the Friends of Holly Hill Farm, we lease the property we're on now, which is 5.23 acres of land. And we run the farm itself. The White family owns it. Again, there'll be more discussion about that. You've read the application, so I won't go over everything in there. But I did want to say a few things. I know a lot of projects come before you guys. It's been years since I've been before this committee. Many projects have come before you before. And allow me to say, this is the perfect project for this committee. Let me tell you why. Because we have it all here, okay? You check every single box. Open space, farm, historic preservation, the farm, our historic buildings, even affordable housing. Because our project, we propose to build units to house our farmers, units. But this project isn't perfect just because we check all of your boxes. I think it's perfect because of what we do at Holly Hill Farm. I am very proud to be part of this. And I think all of you and all the citizens of Cohasset would be very proud to get to support us to keep this farm going and to do the work that we want to do. We have a great story. And part of the story is the work that we do. And that's one of the most important things to preserve at the farm. You know, it's kind of funny because a lot of people in Cohasset have heard of Holly Hill Farm and been there, but what we do seems for some reason to be the best kept secret around. Well, no longer. Carolyn and Meredith are going to tell you a lot about what we do. And when you hear it, I promise you, when you're going to hear some numbers that are really going to surprise you and I think impress you for what we've done and what we want to keep going and doing. Because really, when it comes down to what we do good. Do good. Not just for Cohasset, but for the communities all around us. And we want to keep doing that. And we want to keep this story going of doing good for all of us, not just for now, but for generations to come. You ready for the story? Carolyn's going to start us off.
I'm Carolyn Coffey, 63 Highland Avenue. And I'm a board member on the Friends of Holly Hill Farm, and I am also a campaign committee member. And I wanted to start with a little exercise that we did at a little gathering that we had because it was so illustrative. And just ask the room if everybody in the room who's ever bought vegetables from Holly Hill Farm would raise their hand. And now anybody who has attended a program or had a child or a grandchild attend one of the program, a camp or an after-school program or anything, raise your hand. And then how many people have gone to visit the animals or gone for a walk on the property or walked through the property to get to White's Woods and Wheelwright Park? Okay, now granted, this is a stacked audience because we have interested parties, but we did this at a disinterested group and it was incredible. It was the same sort of results. And it really was heartwarming for us because we were like, holy cow, the reach of this place is amazing. So I just wanted to kind of point that out because I think one of the things we want to impress upon you guys is how this will benefit the entire community, people of all ages, all demographics and everything else. So just to back up a little, it's the land that we're seeking to purchase is 5.23 acres. It has been farmed for 400 years. It has been owned by 6 generations of the White family since the middle 1800s. And Jean and Frank White got the 5.23 acres in the mid 1990s and came here and started Holly Hill Farm at that time and turned it into what we all think of it now. Which is a certified organic farm with a mission to provide healthy food and educate children on plant science, nutrition, and sustainability. Frank passed in 2007. Jean and her 3 children now own the land, and they were doing some estate planning, and they determined that the family needs to sell the land. However, they are very, very interested in having the farm stay a farm and continue with its mission. And so they have been incredibly patient sellers and allowing the Friends of Holly Hill to get the ship in order so that we could pull off what will end up being, we think, the largest capital campaign in Cohasset's history at least to date. They gave us time to make strategic plans, to become financially sound, to put in place systems and controls, to assemble a Class A team of fundraisers with professional advisors, and to further professionalize the staff and the board. And without further ado, our professional executive director, Meredith Laban, would like to tell you all the good stuff that's going on at the farm, and then I will close.
Meredith Laban, Executive Director of Friends of Holly Hill Farm. I'm really honored to be up here talking about what a great place the Friends is. The Friends was founded on the idea that the farm would be used as a living and breathing classroom. And every day, some of the educators that are sitting back there work to that ideal. They work really hard. Last year, touching 20,000 students with their hands-on education focused on, I would say, about sustainable farming, conservation, nutrition, nature, climate change, and ecology. Students do come from 40 different towns ranging on the South Shore, as far as Dorchester and down to Kingston. The last 2 summers, our summer programs were voted best of the South Shore in 2023 and 2024. I really think of Holly Hill as a place where I sent my kids to really get their hands in the dirt, to not be on screens, and to learn to work together. One of our signature programs at the farm, really talking about the good that we do, is our Farm to Food Pantry program that educator Johnny Belber, back there in the audience, runs. Last year, donating 4,500 pounds of fresh vegetables to local food pantries in Boston, Quincy, Weymouth, Hingham, Hull, Scituate, and here in Cohasset. That program also provides a lot of community service hours to local Cohasset Public School students. I have a little quote because I think it helps summarize what some of the students get out of that program. My experiences as a volunteer at Holly Hill Farm have given me some of the fondest memories of my time in high school. Bonding with peers as we harvested crops in the greenhouses, learning how chemistry applies to the creation of compost in a 3 parts carbon, 1 part nitrogen composition, forming a broader connection to my local community through giving back. These are just a few of the memories I will cherish for the rest of my life. I couldn't recommend volunteering at Holly Hill Farm anymore for any other high school student. Additionally here, with Cohasset Public Schools, our education director, Bruce Frost, just recently participated in the strategic planning process, really helping to solidify how the partnership between the farm and the public schools. But just currently, even what we're doing right now, our great educators visit all the students in K-2, either 5 to 6 times in the fall and the spring. And each grade comes out for at least one field trip per year to the farm. Deer Hill, the same thing. We're out there actually fall, winter, and spring with the students. Recently, our educators built 9 new accessible garden boxes for students to grow vegetables in, built a new compost system, and the Deer Hill Kitchen tries to use as much of the produce grown in those boxes in the lunches as they can. I don't know if you've seen up at the middle school, but we built 24 new garden boxes also for growing produce for the middle and high school lunches, and work pretty regularly with the agricultural club. And at the high school, finally, we do work with 3 of the environmental science classes going in to do lessons, as well as having them come out to do field trips to the farm. So we are working with all the students, but that is not the only thing that happens at the farm. The Friends also offers sustainability and conservation workshops for adults at the farm, off the farm. And the other thing I like to think about the farm is that it's really starting to become, I see it as almost like that in that third space idea that, you know, it's not school, it's not work, it's not church, it's someplace different where people could come and build community. Some people do that through volunteering at the farm. Some do it by taking walks and visiting the animals. Some do it by attending events. Some do it by shopping at the farm stand on a Saturday. The farm is open dawn to dusk and is free to all. And that's only really because the Frank White family has been so generous. This is private land that they have let the Friends and let all of us walk on and visit for years. And I think they've been so generous in wanting to share the farm with everyone that I think it's really on us to make sure that we can help save the farm, keep it a farm and keep it accessible to everyone.
Which brings us to why we are here. We are asking the CPC to help the Friends of Holly Hill Farm purchase the land and invest in it. We've requested $1 million, and I know $1 million is a big ask of the CPC, but I just wanted to put some context around it and why we think $1 million is the right number. The plan takes place in 3 parts. First and foremost, of course, we have to purchase the land, and we need to raise $2.5 million in order to complete that transaction. Once we own the land, then the Friends of Holly Hill Farm will invest in the property. We would renovate the main barn, and we would improve the traffic flow and parking there for safety and accessibility, make the main barn accessible for everyone. The Whites have used our lease payments to keep up the buildings, but they haven't made a large investment in them despite our monumental growth and all the programs and everything that we're doing. So it's time. And in our 3rd phase, we would seek to build a new indoor-outdoor programming building so that we are a little less dependent on Mother Nature's cooperation for our programs and our fundraisers. And we would also create some apartments for our assistant growers in that building. And exciting news, bathrooms, which we do not have on the property. The farm restorations and improvements would be an additional $3 million on top of the 2.5 it would cost to purchase the property. So the total package would be $5.5 million, which of course we expect will take a few years to complete. So just in context, the $1 million contribution would be 18% of the total that we need to raise. It would be if it were all for the land purchase, as we put in the application, it would be 40% of the total that we would need there. And Tom, I'm sure you appreciate this as a development guy, but with a capital campaign of this size, we are learning best practices are you have a gift pyramid, which shows the number of gifts at different levels that you might need in order to be successful. And generally there's, you know, a few very large gifts at the top, and you get broader and broader as the gifts get smaller, with many more at the bottom. Our, you know, best scenario that we expect in order to be able to make this happen will require us to have at least $1 million gift. So we are here hoping that the CPC will partner with us and be that $1 million gift. We certainly can't imagine another opportunity, as Mark said, that so neatly fits all of the CPA guidelines that are out there in terms of, investing in open space and recreation and in historic preservation by saving the Lac Farm in Cohasset and its 1785 buildings, and then building, affordable housing for the assistant growers who can't afford to live anywhere near Cohasset on what we can afford to pay them. So in closing, I would just like to say, I'd like to repeat something that was said to us in a fundraising conversation, which was that we seem to have a unique opportunity here to do something like our forebears did when they bought the land for Sandy Beach. And that is to invest in this piece of property, this gem that makes part of what makes Cohasset, and keep it for generations to come. And with that, we have a large crowd here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Very impressive. Questions?
What's the percentage of affordable housing in the units that you plan?
100%.
All of them? Are they going to be rent controlled, or what do you expect?
They're going to be they'll be part of the compensation package for the growers.
So how many units will be there?
At least 2. And we haven't designed the building completely yet, so it depends on what we have room for. But at least 2, and if we can squeeze 3, maybe 3.
David?
No, hold on. Anybody else has some?
Carol?
Have you started going to the different boards to see what they're going to approve if you try and build?
We've had conversations with the conservation agent, and we've been working with Hoadley Martinez on a design concept. Just, back of the envelope kind of thing. We haven't invested a lot of money in it yet because we want to make sure we can do it. But part of making it do it was talking to the conservation agent, and we have cited the building in a way that we know we can.
The zoning.
Not with zoning. We haven't been in front of zoning yet.
But it'd be okay with zoning, yeah.
Yeah.
When we did all this work, we will do have to go before boards and so forth, but I think we're gonna need minimal relief based on the way we've laid it out. The 5.2, there are some places we cannot build on the 5.2.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna work for any variety of reasons. So we're somewhat limited, but we've found those spots, which we think will be.
Well, I'm just concerned because the fact if you don't have approval from your zoning and your other ones, conservation is one thing, but you also got zoning and building and all this other, so you can't get through them. You're dead in the water.
Yeah, well, we have 5.23 acres already, setbacks, height, lot coverage, those types of zone. I was on the zoning board 14 years.
Yeah.
Those types of things we've got covered. We don't expect to need any relief.
So where exactly? Because I used to work for Mrs. White, Cornelia in Richardson.
Oh.
So, and I'm trying to picture which part of the property they're trying to sell to you. I know the barn is the lower part. Is that house at the bottom included in that transaction?
The farmhouse, it's
You
right
mean
on.
Jean's house?
Huh?
No, the
The
farmhouse.
farmhouse,
farmhouse.
yes.
The one
Yes.
right here, right at the street, right at
Yeah.
Atlantic,
Yeah.
the street there.
Yeah.
What about the big house back up on the
No,
hill? That's not included.
No,
They're
that is-
keeping that one.
Someone
That
else's
is someone
property.
else's property.
Oh,
So
that's-
Correct.
when you drive into Holly Hill in the main driveway,
Yeah,
you drive in, you have a farmhouse, you have the tomato barn, and you have the main barn.
right.
So all of those buildings will be included, and then it's everything to the right
Right.
until you get to the wetland.
Down
Yeah,
towards
Because
the
the
ocean.
others road keeps going up and it went up to the big house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
all
totally
other
separate.
people's
Well,
property.
they sold that off already then.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, long
Oh,
time ago.
yeah.
Yeah, after they died,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I was trying to picture, okay, where is this going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the 5 acres on which the barns and the growing fields are
And-
located.
The caretaker house, I think is what they used to call
Yes,
that.
yes, that's the
Yeah.
farmhouse.
And now it's our farmer house.
It's farmhouse. Okay.
Jen?
I had two questions. So the first, so the acreage that you're purchasing is what you guys have been actively using all of it at this point.
Mhm.
Correct.
So it's not extra land, it's what you've been leasing up to this point.
Mhm.
And then in terms of, separate from the million that you're requesting, from the CPC, the other money is already secured, the money you've listed, or are you hoping to get it? Where is that?
Yeah, the 3-6.
Yeah. the
We
additional-
we are in process. We have put together an amazing team of people who, many of whom are sitting behind us, who have 100% of whom have financially supported this and who are out planning and starting, we're just starting the cultivation process. As you might imagine, with a capital campaign of this size, you will know, we want to make sure we're in the what's called the quiet phase, where we're talking to people and trying to assess interest and capacity and make sure that people are aware of all the great work that the farm does, so that they will hopefully support us as generously as they possibly can, rather than just, yes, I think it's great. Here's a check for 10% of what maybe they would be capable of giving, because clearly to raise this kind of money, we're going to need capacity gifts. So we are just starting that. We have commitments for over $1 million, 3/4 of which can be used for the land purchase. So
So-
we're starting,
Yeah.
but we have a long way to go.
So
But having a big win, no,
Kind doesn't really help.
I mean, I'm giving you the sales pitch, but I got it, but there are definitely some heavy hitters out there who would be happy to support, but they want to know they're on a winning team. So having that big supporter behind you makes a big difference.
Also, Conservation Trust, which I'm also on, we're holding like $60,000 earmarked for us. And then when it comes time, we'll be applying, the farm will be applying to the trust for some additional funds. So the hope really is public-private going to different areas, including the trust, which I'm fairly confident we'll get some significant 6 figures.
So what is the timeline then for the purchase? And I ask because
I think
we have, I mean, and realistically in raising the money, because we have a deadline for how long you can hold the money before using it. And we would want to make sure that this would be able to fall within that. So what do you think is, realistically when you would be using this money?
We have a purchase and sale agreement signed.
Yeah.
That requires us to have all of the money raised by the end of the first quarter next year.
Okay.
Our goal is by the end of this calendar year, to give us a little bit of wiggle room if we need it. But we are required by the purchase and sale agreement to have it all raised by the end of the first quarter.
And close it, just to be clear, closing the purchase,
Right.
have all the money.
Yes.
in
Yeah,
close.
not the 6 million, but the 2.5.
But
Right.
Yeah.
the money to just buy the land.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Amy.
I suspect that this is not the let me ask it differently. Have you had an opportunity to do an investigation of the types of other organizations that have been able to be successful in doing a project like this? I can think of a number of places in California, in Colorado, in Oregon, in Washington, even in Idaho. And I'm wondering whether or not, as a piece of your portfolio, is having these examples and taking these examples, not just from the aesthetics or the capacity that has been generated on each one of these operations, but the actual financing strategy, because there's always multiple ways to skin a cat, right? And the question is, there's laws in Massachusetts, there are local land use regulations, but I'm on the planning board and I suspect that I'm not worried about that at this early stage. But the idea of the financing, because you're going to have people that have different motivations and different points of view about how you manage money and how you strategize the utilization of pieces of property. So have you had a chance to compile things like that?
I have spoken with the executive directors of two other similar farms, Landsake Farm in Weston and Right Lock Farm in Winchester, both in the last 5 to 7 years that have gone through capital campaigns. At Landsake in Weston was more about infrastructure, and they raised over $7 million in the last 4 to 5 years to really improve their infrastructure for their farm. Right Lock Farm in Winchester raised over 15 million to buy property as well as buildings that they use on their farm. So I have talked to them, and we also share best practices just on day-to-day farming and community farming and what that means. We didn't put it part of this application, but I mean, it is something, yes, we do try to garner best practices from them.
But no, we haven't looked at anything in out west or anything. And if if you have places to point us, we are always open to learning.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned 3 structures, 3 phases of this. Are they independent? If you get phase 1 and you don't have more money, have you got a red herring on your hands, or have you got a viable?
We will keep fundraising until we get it done. So, the only one that has a time stamp on it is the purchase and sale to buy the land. And then after that, we will do what we can with the fundraising that we have. And as we make improvements, I'm sure people will love what they see and want to continue to support, and we will just keep going. We've set it up as a 3-year campaign. It may end up taking a little longer than that, but we intend to keep going until we get it done. But no, there are discrete pieces. So, if we get the 2.5 million, we buy the land, and then after that, we will invest in the traffic and safety, the accessibility and the safety and infrastructure, getting electricity and stuff up there. And then in the restoration of the barn.
Your operating assumption is that the CPC money would be used for the purchase?
The application made us choose one bucket. So that's what we chose. But
what I'm thinking is, if it's for the purchase of the land, then you need it agreed upon and in cash by the end of the year. If it's for building another building or rehabbing, that's a different thing. That could be over 3 or 4 years.
So our total need is 5.5 million, and we'd love for you to be $1 million of that. And however it works, we will make it work.
So,
You got to get the 2.5
Yes, we need.
before it can work.
Yeah.
so are you going to be able to get the 2.5 without us putting in $1 million to begin with?
I am very optimistic that with at least some help from the CPC,
So if we
we'll be
set
able to buy the land.
and split it over the 3 years, $1 million rather than all in one time.
Yes, I mean, that's an option.
Yeah.
There are a variety, and we'll work with,
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
I
we'll
see it
work
kind
it,
of similar.
but
to
I just
that.
want to know what your intent was in putting this forward.
Yeah, we're just excited to make this all.
Best case is the million to help private property.
Yep.
Understanding what we heard
Yeah.
Chris say and so forth, that may be a little tough to do. So let's work together and figure it out.
I like
Dave.
your closing, which you referenced Sandy Beach and the investment
Huh?
that the forefathers did. That was clever and well done. Because
I was just quoting somebody, I do not take credit for that, but it really struck me when he said that too. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to use that.
I was recently walking through and I noticed a plaque that said a date and I thought, wow, that was very smart of them to put the, could easily have been a giant house.
Yeah.
So, but I do see this in projects, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, then they fit into our different buckets and, being open space first that I would feel comfortable addressing.
Then the historic,
And then
Present.
historic. And then
the community,
I'm
Affordable aid.
not sure about phase 3 and I think that needs more discussion on that.
Yeah.
Well, it's both affordable housing and recreation. I'm not sure if the affordable housing actually fits the technical definition because it's worker housing, but certainly in spirit,
Mhm. In spirit, of course, and
it
but and then-
definitely does.
and recreation typically is building trails or playground, so like an exploration into how you envision that property or how you envision the community center being used.
It will, what we have designed conceptually is something like the sailing club, where it's a big open space. It's with doors, retractable doors that open up. That will be indoor, outdoor. It will be classroom space. It will be host fundraisers. We now host fundraisers sometimes in greenhouses. Sometimes we cancel them because the weather report is, just doesn't make it worth our investment. And when that does happen, the amount of staff inconvenience and stress and effort to reprogram things and everything is ridiculous. So having a place where we can count on that has a catering kitchen will therefore allow us to have cooking classes, other revenue generating opportunities. It will allow us to have private events, corporate events, where people can come and have a meal or whatever, it just a lot more revenue producing opportunities.
And I would suggest respectfully that if you were willing to do this, so say $1 million paid, 1/3 1 year, 1/3 1 year, as a whole project and not tie the 1/3
agreed.
to the various stages.
Mhm.
Because then you don't have to get into that whole discussion. It's really where the open space is obvious, the historic is obvious. The affordable, these are folks that cannot afford to live in Cohasset that will be living in Cohasset. Now, it doesn't mean 40B, no, it doesn't. But rather than, tie it to the stages, just talk about it in terms of years.
You had a couple questions. I saw the pitch deck that you'd given to the board before, with sort of the totality of the project and then with the application that you had. Minus the redoing of the barn, would there be any other expansions, like more greenhouses or anything like that? Is there any increase in production of what the farm actually produces from the project when it's all done?
I would make the argument, we're not looking at any more greenhouses at the moment, but by having the efficiencies of having our wash stand right now is in a place that's not very efficient. And right now, so moving that to the main barn, being able to sell year round out of the farm stand instead of having to move into the greenhouse every winter because of main barn is not heated. I would say, yes, we'll be able to produce more just because our staff will be able to be more efficient and we'll have better access to that main barn and be able to use that main barn. So we can expand our footprint, but we can expand how we do our work.
So do you have any storage of crops now, or would you be building that in with any?
We have right now, we have 2 cool bots where we store, but neither works really that well because they're in a 1785 barn. So the farmers are running out with their air conditioners and those freeze and break and there's a lot of inefficiencies.
So this would be part of the efficiency.
Yes, exactly.
The other question I had is, was there any discussion by the board, and I wouldn't recommend it, about that once it's purchased, about mortgaging the property to get the money for, or parts of the money for the other pieces.
That's been out there, but yeah, it's something we, that's, break glass in case of emergency kind of stuff. We intend to raise all this money. And we're pleased at where we are, having just started, and we're very, very optimistic we're gonna get there. So, yeah, Dave, I mean, if worse happens, we could go that route, but we don't want it. We don't want to mortgage it. We want to own this property free and clear and operate it going forward.
That's why I said I would not advise it, and I think for people would have to vote on this at town meeting, they probably wouldn't want that as well, because you're adding all that risk, property that you're already buying, and then,
That's right.
not knowing what could happen later on, so I just bring it up.
Yeah,
Great.
I don't see it, but and if it was, it would be very small, but we're not talking about it. And to your other question, because people ask, we're not going to get this money and become a mega farm, we're Little Holly Hill. We're still gonna be Little Holly Hill. We're gonna be more efficient. And the important thing to remember here too, we talk about crops and so forth, obviously that's important. Our primary purpose is education. It's not growing food. Now, you got education about growing food, so you gotta grow food, right? But it's primarily about education. That's what Frank and Jean were about when they started it, and it's what Jean is about now, and it's what we're all about now. 20,000, you heard that, right? 20,000 kids we touched last year. Now that maybe we can grow, believe it or not. But that's a lot. That's really what we're all about.
Have you calculated whether building this expanded operation is gonna have impact on your operating budget? And what does that look like? But budget
Idea of how you're
that
gonna fund that?
we could take a look at and how that's gonna
Mhm.
go
Yep.
forward. What any board would like least to do is to fund a dead building.
Yeah.
Or a dead operation, because
Well, that's why we took the last 6 or 7 years to build our financial stability,
Right.
put in place all those systems and controls and build everything out so that we would be a good investment.
Right.
And we are.
if you could show us that, that would be great.
Operational costs, there will be more operation,
Well, that
clearly, obviously.
always is.
Yeah, and so we have been working.
So we'll send that to you to
Great.
share with them.
Any other questions?
Before to see.
Oh, I wanted to offer that. Yeah.
Be happy
Do you want to do
yeah.
a walk around?
We're happy to do
Yeah.
that.
I like,
Memory
but
lane.
not,
Yeah.
not in
Memory
a
lane
couple
to do.
weeks.
I think it's very cold right now.
Yeah.
Again,
No. No. It's a little
Yes.
chilly.
We'd be happy to
I
do
go
it.
walk at 6 o'clock every morning and it's cold out there.
Good for you.
Yeah.
all right.
We'll schedule.
No other questions? Great.
All right.
We have,
Thank you.
just, if you could email or otherwise, and then we could, I don't know if we'll all make the same time, but if we could
Sure. Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
walk
We
the
can set up
property
something.
Are there days and times that are better for you guys as a group?
mornings.
Mornings, weekdays, weekends?
Yes.
Weekdays.
Weekday mornings.
Weekday,
Okay. We'll make it happen.
Monday's not good for me.
Monday's not good,
Not
okay.
many.
I'm at the senior center. I'm here Monday morning. Every
All
Monday.
right, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Excellent,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, Cohasset Housing Authority.
Are they here?
Well, I'm sure they are.
Yes, right there.
Do you want us to clean it up?
Hello. So I am Taffy Nothnagel, 65B Wheelwright Farm. And I am right now Vice Chair of the Housing Authority. And Ginny was under the weather, or she could be here to present, but I have the application and you have the application? Yes.
Yep.
So certainly not as exciting as what they just presented, which I know nothing about. It's really fabulous. It's fabulous.
Oh, can you just hold on? Just
Oh.
the room clears that she can hear. Sorry.
So This is a request for replacing a partial funding of replacing the roofs on 15 buildings at 60 Elm Street. Each of the buildings has 4 units in it. You're probably aware about how big a structure. And you did pay to replace the roof on the community building and one of the buildings last year. So we have become aware that in the there's new housing plan, they are giving grants 2/3 match to 1/3 for projects like roofing. And roofing is covered under the Community Preservation Act because it prevents intrusion by water into the structure. And that's one of the things that they allow. So, so we feel that it is a good use of CPC money. And so we're asking for $275,000 as our portion of that expense, and they would match 2/3 of that. I don't quite understand why Ginny broke that amount, $275,000 into 2 years. You know, I asked her about it, I still didn't understand it. But I think it has something to do with the grants will not become effective until after July 1st. So if we were to receive the money and have it available, it seems to me that it would be best to have the whole 275 available and say to the state, this is what we have. And now you need to give us 2/3 match to that. And then we would hope to be able to do it next year. But it would all have to go out to bid after they have awarded their grant, which won't start until July 1st.
Looks like it's for 2000.
Well,
Five
yeah,
and
she
26.
suggested that we might carry it over into the next year, but you know, I frankly, and I don't think she's on Zoom. She said she would try to be, but I don't understand why that would work, because once this project starts, it would be done in 2 weeks. You know, this is not something that's going to be prolonged over a long period of time. Roofing doesn't take a lot of time.
Maybe we should find out why she wants to do it that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did ask her, but I didn't quite understand, but she said it's something to do with, I think she wanted to think, oh, have the money committed and 175 committed for next year, and then if the grant doesn't play out till the next fiscal year, we go for another 100,000 and then we'd be set to go. But
Total is
The
the 275.
275 is the total. Yeah, that's what we need.
Actually, it's 277.
Okay.
277, because it's 276, 563.
All right,
Switch that down.
Yeah, 9, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not 275.
Yeah.
77.
And is getting the state the 2/3 contingent on having do
yes, it
you
is.
have
Yeah.
that first? and
Yes,
then
yeah,
they'll-
that's
Are
how-
you guaranteed to match it, or is it?
No, they're not guaranteed.
Oh.
We're not guaranteed that we'll get it. And as we said in the grant, if we don't get it, we won't use the money. The CPC hopefully would vote. It will just come back to you
We just come back.
because we have to have the grant.
So it's an application process that you have
Yes.
to do.
Yeah. It's a high lap grant and they have just, it's just starting out this month. So we haven't even seen the application yet. But they explained that this is the kind of project they want to do and they will do a 2/3 match. That, and now it's interesting. It's interesting and discouraging to me also. These roofs were replaced 19 years ago under the same kind of a grant. We paid 400, they did more than the roofs, but we paid $400,000 of CPC money. The state gave us $800,000. We did roof siding, windows and doors of 16 buildings. And now we're back, but they have sold us that the roofs are failing. So
What was the
20
guarantee on
years.
the roof?
What?
What was the original guarantee on the roof? Did
I
they
have
say?
no idea. This, you know, this is state.
Yeah.
It's state work. They, you know, they do the contracts, they would do the specs and they are the ones who appoint the contractor.
So do they, do you get to recommend what type of roofing will be used in a coastal community, or does the state do that? or-
No, the state does that. Yeah, this is all handled by a regional consulting firm which belongs, the state runs.
Mhm.
They come in, they do the specs and they put it all out to bid and then we are allowed to look at the bidders and question, but they go with the lowest bidder, state contract, unless there's some serious complaint against that bidder.
And when do you need to complete this project by?
Well, we don't want the roofs to leak. They said they thought they would fail the next year or two, so. So we would like to do them next year, in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Or at the worst, the year
Can I
after.
Can I ask a question? In the documentation that was presented, the discussion of how long ago the roofs were replaced, I think wasn't it listed as much older than that?
No. No, because I was the one who came to the CPC with that request. And I believe it was 2008.
2008.
Probably 2007, when the roof was replaced. I know it's in here somewhere.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
2008.
2008,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, right here.
the last
I have to
Yeah.
replace my roofs.
Yeah, and I
So-
was I was
So-
the chairman then.
just to ask this, or maybe I'm a grumpy old woman, but
Yeah.
boy, I'll tell you, if I had, having your hands tied by a contractor who delivers a product that probably theoretically is supposed to have at least a lifespan of 30 years, I had my
Mhm.
roof done, that's what they say.
Mhm.
I would get a very vicious person and send them there and say, this is ridiculous, because that's, they're obviously using optimal materials if they're leaking now or going to
Mhm.
leak. And and the other thing is to send your own person up there and ask them whether or not the people that you contracted now with,
Yeah.
who told you they're going to fail, actually find somebody else and get an opinion from them.
Well, we can do that, but it was the RCAT representative who works with us. She works for the state. And she's the one who said that the roofs were failing. The roof that was already replaced last year was leaking. That's why we had to replace that roof last year. And you can tell by looking at these roofs that they're failing.
Wow.
Is there any kind of guarantee?
I don't believe there is, no. I mean, certainly not 20 years. There may have been a 10-year.
It'd be minimal. I don't know what.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you see the one
I
that
mean,
they just-
unfortunately, say this, we are taxpayers of the state and we get ripped off.
Yeah.
We do, we
Yeah.
get ripped off.
you're saying the one that they just replaced 2 years ago is now leaking?
No, it was leaking.
Oh,
That's
it
why
was
we had to
leaking. Oh,
replace it.
okay,
We
okay.
had to go ahead and do that one
yeah.
as an emergency.
Is there a way, if we provide you the funds, that you can have someone to second verify the first roof that's done, to verify that the construction is done correctly and that it will be maintained for 20 years? We prefer to give money that lasts longer than. just-
Yeah, you would.
Is there someone that could?
We have to go with the bid that the state accepts. Now, as I said, they have the specifications, they have specifications for the shingles, for the roofing material. They're supposed to be hurricane resistant. This is supposed to be. What was chosen in 2007, I don't remember. I don't remember who the contractor was or anything about it. I could go back probably and find out. But we don't have, beyond that, a lot of jurisdiction over it, because they put out the specifications of what they want. They get the bids, they put out the bids, and they have to pick the lowest bidder.
Unless somebody complains.
Unless it's a complaint about their work with a previous housing authority, basically, and we do review that. We get references on everything.
I don't know what the specs for the new one would be, but state building code was updated a few years ago and it strengthened everything, especially for coastal communities. If you're within so many miles of of the ocean and,
Mhm.
the hurricane resistant windows, things like that, all that was updated in the building code. So I don't know what the new state
Well-
specs are for this roof, but I would imagine they're going to be stronger than what they were in 2006.
I think they are, because I know
Yeah.
Kate, we talked to this Kate, who is our RCAT representative, who handles all this specs and bidding. And that's what she said, you know, roofs are failing because of their location and the wind direction, and you're right off the harbor, and the shingles are lifting. And that these would be hurricane resistant shingles. So they're not leaking at this point in any of these buildings, as far as I know. But we wanted to try to get this in now so that we can apply for this 2/3 match, because that's very valuable.
Other questions? No?
At this point.
Okay, well,
All right.
Ginny will be back, I hope, and
I know she was sick.
yeah, we'll get something definitive on this 275 and 175, you know, $100.
How fast a process is the state in terms of approving this kind of thing? Because our money will not go forward until we have
Right,
actual invoices on,
Yes.
on
Yeah.
work. So
Right.
if we were calculating when you might need the money,
right.
you have some wild.
Well, I know I don't, because this is a new grant,
Yep.
and it'll be interesting to see, you know, the governor passed this $1 billion housing improvement bill, which is, and that's as part of that, trying to, so you hope that it will move along quickly, but they may get tons and tons of applications. I don't know. Yeah, so I know ties the money up for 3 years if you voted now, but I'm sure that we would like to get it done next year, you know, so. We'll pursue them and, you know.
Go get them.
Yeah,
To jump on it.
yeah. I couldn't believe all the people that were here when I walked in. What are these people here for?
We're all here for the housing authority.
Right, and I knew they weren't.
We've never
They're not
received
old
a
enough.
crowd.
All right.
They would never have fit in that other room.
Yeah. Oh. So any other business, any conversation? I think we can send the Sandy Beach thing forward. To tell them to submit a formal proposal.
I think so, but I mean, I know it's recreation. I mean, it's more like, is it recreation?
Well, it's
I think
open
it's
space,
I think
open
it's open
space.
space.
Oh,
Open
it's- yeah,
space
it's open
and
s- I
recreation,
think
both
it's-
actually, but it's probably open space.
I think it's definitely open space more so than
It's more open.
I think
space.
Yeah.
recreation. but I
Because they're
mean,
trying to save the open space.
Right.
I think that-
And recreation.
And
it's
reaction,
making
yeah.
it so
Well, I
it's
know it's
workable. yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I was trying to justify it that
I think it's open.
80% of the town, 90% of the town uses that. So,
Yeah.
And it's a great asset of the town.
yes, it's,
Yeah. Well, I'm concerned, I was concerned when they said they use metal rods because the salt water was gonna kill those metal rods.
I was
I'm
gonna say it's
surprised they
gonna- yeah,
lasted
yeah,
as long
yeah,
as they've
yeah.
lasted.
right.
Well, I wouldn't think water would be great for cedar wood either.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's as bad as on cedar wood as it is on the metal.
Apparently, that's what they
I
say.
was just surprised in looking at the database, there was not one town had done something similar to this, like holding back. And they had referenced other towns that had done something like this. So I just
What were
wanted,
the other towns? That's the other
I looked at,
coastal ones.
looked at the
There's a couple on the
whole-
Cape, right?
I
Or
looked at
CPC.
over 100.
I think that
I
what
didn't
the-
see anything that said fencing, like
No,
beach fencing or,
yeah, I did a quick scan. but I was trying to
I saw
also figure out how many
dunes.
towns
yeah.
fall into
Well-
our location.
Well, I saw some when we were down the Cape. My husband used to like to ride down along there.
Oh,
And
yeah,
there's
you
a lot of them
you see
down
the
along-
fences.
Yeah, you see the fences
Well-
down along the Cape all the time.
The
on the
thing is,
beaches.
I think there's a couple unique things is that in our beach in Cohasset, the Sandy Beach Association owns the beach, town owns the parking lot.
Right.
You know, it's so with most Cape beaches, that's the town just owns the beach and the,
And the
Down
parking
south.
lot.
Oh.
and so it just, so they're not,
So it's different funding more so.
yeah, so you don't have that bifurcation that we
That
we
makes
have.
sense.
Yeah.
So where you've got a nonprofit that owns the beach,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
most of the towns just own the beach and it's a town beach. you
And the
know,
town
unless
takes
it's a particular,
care of it, yeah.
yeah, the town just takes care of it. and It's just in their
Part of their
DPW
maintenance
budget and
stuff.
there you
Oh,
go.
I understand.
Yeah.
So
That's why it's
So
more
that's
of a
probably-
DPW issue.
Fence be paid by the
Right.
the back fence is the town's fence. I'm just gonna put it belongs to the
It's
beach.
creative.
No, but when you're saying you were looking for it, I think that might be something that would be a wrinkle that you know,
Yeah,
'cause-
I was just trying to how to
Yeah, that
clarify
makes
it
sense.
better.
Yeah.
Is it a dune? It's not a dune. Cause you even
Not
said
a
that,
dune.
like, you can't move a dune. So how do you label it?
We don't want to,
properly?
we don't want any more dunes in the beach. Trust me. No.
No, we don't want
This
to.
would stop the.
It's-
Bad enough
it's
we've
to
got
stop
piping
this-
plovers, so.
It's to stop the sand from
It's a
being
sand catcher.
blown up over and onto the road and to the other side of the road.
And creating dunes in the parking lot.
Open space. I was just trying to clarify it better, like in my mind, in the categories.
I would definitely say open
replenishment,
space,
yeah,
yeah.
if I were
I
to.
think it's
Yeah.
maintaining the beach.
Maintaining the beach.
Mhm.
But I was kind of concerned when they were looking for the whole.
Yes, I agree with
We've-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've suggested that they.
Yeah,
They,
They
yeah,
have
they
a-
gotta have some skin in the,
Yeah,
Right. No, they do. They need to have some kind of capital campaign to
Yeah.
support it.
because when I was reading that, I said, wait a minute. They wanted to fund this whole project?
do,
Well, I think it's very important that every project has some kind of contribution to
Do it, yeah.
in addition to us. It's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You work at it.
But I mean, I feel comfortable with them moving forward with an application.
Yeah.
with
Yes,
The
that's-
additional stuff that we talked about.
okay.
Yes.
Now, how do people feel about Holly Hill? $1 million is a big
That's,
ask.
and I did the math on the, just this group of projects alone. If we were to just fund exactly what everyone asked for,
Yeah.
let's just say, and it was
Would be
one,
over
it's over, it's almost it's $1.3 million.
Yeah.
all the money that we have.
So, I mean, so that is a big ask for 1 year, one project
Chris,
without bonding.
how do you help us in getting funding scenarios that if we did it outright, if we did it partially outright and partially bonded, if we did totally bonded, what impact that would have on our grant making capacity?
And they're gonna email the operating expenses,
Yes.
because that would also be.
Well, that's why I asked if we could do it over a 3-year
Right,
period,
right.
not all in one
The
year.
question about timing was important too. If, like, for example, with housing authority, they just need to know that the money's there. It doesn't have to be in the bank necessarily, but it's been a commitment for it. It may not have to be funded for another year. I mean, the way the state works with their grants.
So it could be 5 years. when
Right,
it
right, right.
works.
It's true. So,
Allocate it, then it's sort of,
It's sort of tied up.
it's tied up. though, like we-
correct.
Yes.
But again, I have to, I'm hoping to have, like I told you, a better number on the undesignated, and I need to talk to our accountants a little bit more. So before you meet next time, I'll have an update on that. So that- It may make your problems a little easier.
And I do have a question though, in terms of the allocating. So let's say that we voted to approve, say that the housing one, so that they could then apply, right? Because they would be tied up without it. But what,
I think they've applied already, actually. I think,
Huh?
I think the grant would have started, but maybe I'm wrong. So
well, she was just saying that they couldn't officially apply, right, until they had the 1/3 officially locked up.
Okay.
But if, let's say they didn't need it for a year or something, is there a way, and I don't know what all the laws are for CPC funds, where if we were to say, approve it for a future fiscal year? Do
No, you can't, that-
No,
I'm
right, you
afraid you
can't do
can't do
that.
that.
Unless it's a bond.
Well, you have.
Yeah.
Right, you'd have to bond it for later, so,
I
but
mean,
so anything would be go
well, you
out now.
could, I mean, so one way of kind of skirting around that is you can get authorization for what was it? Let's say it's $500,000, 275. And then we don't actually, we can, during the course of a year, the town can lend money to itself. As long as it's closed up before the end of the year. So that could stretch over a period of time. It may
Right.
never get borrowed. And then by the time you allocate money in the next year,
Yep.
I could work that way with Holly Hill, for example, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That would be very helpful if we could get some thought.
Because we don't borrow money until we, like, for example, we borrowed the money for the rec projects all at once, because that's happening very quickly, but the money was allocated for police. We didn't allocate all of it. We only borrowed the money for the actual purchase of the land
Yep.
and some of the engineering works. There's still millions of authorization that hasn't been touched yet, so. But again, when is your next meeting?
February 3rd,
I'll have something wait.
Monday night again.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right before the next, budget's the next
Well,
night.
what
so
they
it's-
need,
It'll be a
according-
financial week for me.
Yeah. What they need, according to this on Holly Hill, they have already signed a purchase and sale in October. specifying a closing date in June of 26
But by,
to buy.
yeah, it's by the first quarter of the next year, yeah.
So they want it, and they have the funds available by the first of 26.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
And the
that's what I read.
fundraising team is
January.
targeted for having funds available December 31st of 2025.
Yep.
Of 25.
Yep.
So they're kind of all over the
That's
place.
part of the, I take it the way it's written, it was part of the purchase sale agreement.
Yeah.
So that they would be assured that money in escrow
Yeah.
on,
Yeah,
so. I think,
I wonder how much they put down, because it didn't say.
I don't know if they put any, I don't know, but look, this is a friendly transaction.
Well, I know it's a friendly transaction, but
right.
still, even friendly transactions have to have some kind of monetary value.
You have to ask them. I
Yeah.
would know.
I think I would really like to see what the purchase and sale has to say, so we know what we're getting into.
That wasn't in that packet
No.
last time.
It's still not in the
Yeah.
It's not
packet
in
here,
this-
really.
I know it's not this.
It's not in here really, other than the dates they did it and when they need money by, but it wasn't saying what the purchase and sale actually said. I
I'll
think
ask
if we're-
Carolyn to send it.
Yeah, I'd like to see a copy of it, just to see what we're,
To see
what
what
they've
they've
agreed
made
to
in
and what they're
advance.
voting
and
us to.
Yep.
payments.
Right, right.
But any other,
I think the Holly Hill one is
Huh?
great, but I think if they, $1 million is a lot, but if they get the money, the thing is that the lower we go on it, they have to come up with the rest at 2.5, and I think that it's kind of drifts away from the success of them consummating the deal within the time period, that's on one end of it. If,
Right, but they need it now.
yeah,
I've done enough fundraising in this town to know that $3.5 million for Holly Hill will be a tough.
2.5, yeah.
More than
Well,
well,
2.5,
the
yeah.
supporting
They're-
grant they've
they're
already
trying-
got,
they're trying to
they've
raise
already secured.
In
But
there.
don't you,
They
I
have-
would have thought that
I thought
that
they
would be
had been
easily
secured.
Yeah.
raised by the town. I would think there were
But-
so many coffers that would be open and so.
Not necessarily in the
We'll
town.
see. We'll see.
That's
I
how
find people will
Not
give you,
necessarily, I know, because I
Not
wasn't involved in
myself.
scouting, and scouting was not always easy to get money.
Hmm.
there've been all sorts of
Oh, yeah.
very interesting ideas,
Yeah.
and people give you $5,000. Or
Yeah.
getting to $3 million with $5,000 increments is a pretty challenging
Yeah.
undertaking.
Can,
So-
can I ask
Yes.
a question? One of the things that when everybody was talking earlier, I went to look and see just exactly how many farm type purchased properties were out there. And there's a large number of different kinds of organizations that undertake these kind of activities. And I was trying to, like, the Conservation Trust as an example. And they have a map, you can see it, there's thousands of pieces of property. And I wonder, the reason I asked my question about whether or not they had actually investigated the strategies that people use is because sometimes in the haste, because it sounds like they don't have that much time, they're fearful that this is not going to work, but that they haven't actually explored the many different ways in which resources for this kind of project could be put together. And, I was thinking to myself, if I had a student that could actually do an analysis of it, because what they're doing, they're looking at what's going on in Massachusetts. They're looking at what other people have told them, but they're not actually doing the investigation to actually find out what's the right strategy. And maybe there's only one strategy. So I'm not criticizing them on, that there's a million of them, but I just kind of worry that they put themselves in a box, really, right? They've got a certain amount of time, and then what happens if that doesn't come off? Then what will happen? And it just would be much more comforting to think that they actually had a strategy. They have a strategy for wanting something, but they don't have a real structure for how they're going to learn to get that.
Well, I do know
Right.
that my
It would be
dad
great to see that.
grew up in Braintree, and when he grew up in Braintree, there were 35 working farms. Wonder how many working farms there are now? 0. Farm in 1957, lock, stock, and barrel up to Vermont, because he got zoned out.
Well, and we know that from the dairy here,
Yeah.
right? That they went up to New Hampshire, now they're back here. But I guess, if the town really wants this to happen, I am looking at Chris and thinking, well, Chris, we got all these really smart kids at Cohasset High, and this would be a great public service project to give them this information, because when they go to ask people for money, the people are gonna say, well, what do you know about this? And if it could be a project that the town sponsored.
I think it's well worth, all of you having more conversation. I mean, that's a pretty high-powered group of folks on that board who've been in Quasi a really long time. And, I think they've thought about this a lot.
yeah.
And not that I'm any more familiar with the details than any of you.
Sure.
And it is a jewel. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of property.
Oh, it
Quite
is.
frankly,
It's nice.
I love to go up there in the winter and I'm getting fresh spinach because they grow spinach in the greenhouses.
Oh, yeah.
in the winter.
Really?
It's great. So,
Like I said, it was
They're-
working for.
they're-
but I'll get you more financial updates before the next meeting.
Yeah.
So that we have some sense of alternative strategy.
Yep.
There's a lot of grants out there for operations and other things like that. They're phase 2 and phase 3.
Yep.
Yes.
There's MDR, Mass Department of Agriculture, and all sorts of other things that, they have all sorts of grants for different things. But
I wonder if they've looked
for
into
coming
any of
for the
them.
purchase, I don't think there's much there. There might be some other national things. Mark did say the Cohasset Conservation Trust, was gonna step up to the plate with 60,000 initially and then some more after. So I think it would be other nonprofits, maybe I don't even think Trustees of Reservations or something has anything, they just soak in the land
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
If they gobble it up, they'll do it.
Yeah.
They already have, they have Weir River Farm just over in Hingham. So-
Yeah. So I think the purchase part gives it the permanency. If they can purchase it, then it's,
Then they
the-
can go for it.
yeah, the nonprofit there, it's permanent. Leases are always precarious. They're lucky they have the Whites who have been dealing with them for so many years. So getting that permanency, I think, will make things happen after that. And then I do think there's other grants and availabilities that they can look into after that. And whatever we want to do as well.
Well, I think if we were willing to do $1 million, I think they'd be pretty much assured of getting the 2.5 to purchase. it.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
And how far they can get down the road on the other
Yes,
3.5 or whatever, I think we'll just have to see. So I think we have a big role in this, decide to bite off something that
Gonna
large.
have summer CPC meetings at the farm, at the barn.
We'll have to,
Well, actually, we'll have to put a request and then for that actually would be
Spinach
really
forever.
important, put that on the plaque.
there's definitely a plaque for sure. I mean, if
Definitely.
it was, because
Uh,
but-
But I was also thinking about their affordable housing aspect of this building, and I didn't really see us fitting into that as
No.
well.
Yeah, I think Mark's point was right, though. I don't
It's a
think we
I
minor-
should
think
try
he's
to
looking
shove
for us
this.
to do
Yeah.
the housing. I think he's looking for house probably with the barn,
Mhm.
but I don't think he's looking for the housing part of it,
I-
because I don't think he figures we
Yeah, I
can
would
do
drop
anything.
off, I mean, I see phase 1, phase 2, us, and then phase 3, not really us at all.
And he acknowledged that pretty
Yeah.
much. It doesn't comply with the.
have they talked
No.
with Cassandra or anybody, planning board or town planner for, I know that that's phase 3, it's way down the line, but if they. should be
That's
the
why
one-
I asked him if they've gone to any of these boards to get any input from these boards as to
Well,
what's
he
gonna
said he
go.
was on the planning for. each
Yeah,
of those.
Zoning.
Yeah, they-
Zoning.
they very well may have, I'm not.
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
Okay.
he really has.
Yeah,
Well, I
no, he-
asked him if
he
he's
had
gone to
not.
the other boards, and he said,
Well, no, I mean, they haven't any formal applications, not there.
no, I don't put
No.
application.
But I
But
you can understand what the basic parameters. I mean, there's already multiple properties on the site. I don't think it's really, I don't even know what it's zoned. I mean, I really. don't
Because
think-
the only reason I say this is that the housing in is complicated, it's very.
Complicated now.
Yeah, when you say, you
Right.
can say I want an affordable unit, then you've got to deal with all this.
Which
stuff.
doesn't become.
When they say affordable, they're not thinking about it in a, we're renting it to the public world.
Yes.
It'll be affordable for the
That's
staff.
Right, in order to have the staff, they need
Yeah.
to house them, or they're not gonna have the staff.
Nice
Well, it
house.
just reminds me of the town hall issue with the affordable housing and the units upstairs that we were talking about at town hall. Yeah, last time.
yeah,
or
for the town
last
hall.
year.
That,
Yes,
oh,
so that's why I
Pleasant
wanted
Street, yeah.
to just.
I don't,
figure that out.
I don't think Mark was making any argument that we should be
No.
funding affordable
No, I don't
housing
think so.
project.
No.
I think he was just trying to make the case
Yeah.
that
It checks off a
It
box.
checks
Yeah,
another box.
exactly.
Right, and it's more
That's
just
not the
like.
use.
And it also makes the project viable, right? Because you can't have a farm without people to make the farm go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they-
To house them. is part of
Oh,
it.
they're gonna have to have them live there. I
Right.
mean, there's just no two ways about it because of, you know, the way farming is and the costs around here and everything like
I
that.
think a lot of them live, I think some of them live there now anyway in the farmhouse.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they do,
Yeah.
which I guess they have no water, did you say?
No, no, they
I
have,
go
water.
there-
There's no public bathrooms.
Oh,
Yeah.
back.
There's no public bathroom.
Public
Oh,
bathrooms
okay.
is private.
Right.
There's no, always.
No, there's
bath-
bathrooms in the house, I assume, but.
Yeah, but they don't
still-
have public bathrooms. Okay.
I think if
That's
we
why
could
they never-
pursue a million with
They do
them,
have porta
just figure
potties.
out some scenarios,
Huh?
different
They have goats.
It's-
ways to.
Because I was kind of surprised when he said, oh, they had no bathrooms there. I said, wait a minute, the house is there. And I know the house was, they lived in the house and that house was always considered.
But I know that
Farmhouse.
when the kids have the lessons and stuff there, like they usually use like
They have
the.
an
Yeah,
pond.
they have
outhouse,
marked-
yeah,
they
have
marked
changed
it,
it,
yeah.
yeah. All right,
I don't think there's-
anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
Maybe we- yeah,
Aye.
it's,
Thank you.
Good enough? Okay, good.
All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for
for
coming.
coming in. That's helpful.
That was-
I like fun.